Okay, welcome back friends. This is week 1, module 2. In this module, I'd like to talk to you about the 7 psycho-spiritual laws of maturation. Bit of a mouthful, that one. This was created by Georg Freustern, and this is just a way of actually recognizing that there are progressional steps that you can expect on your journey to self-transformation and ultimately self-transcendence. And so here it is. I'll present to you the slide now. You can just see as it is, these are the 7 steps, but I'll talk to you about each in just a sec. So recognize the first step is self-observation, second step is self-acceptance, then comes self-understanding, self-discipline, self-actualization, self-transformation, and self-transcendence. Okay, so let's begin with the first one, self-observation. Now, I just want to say this, about 20 years ago when I began the process of meditation, I read that actually along with the sitting there, like you're posing for a camera shot, perfectly still with your mind jumping here and there. Along with that, you want to also start to observe yourself throughout your day. Now, I'm not suggesting you need to meditate. I would recommend that you do practice at least 3 minutes a day of just sitting there and just be with yourself. Just be there and observe whatever it is bouncing around inside your head. Become a witness, become the observer. It serves you well. But just throughout the day in general as well, is you want to observe your thoughts, your words, and your deeds. And so for me, 20 years ago, when I started to do this, I actually started to observe parts of myself, such as greed, anger, hatred even. I hate to admit it, but there was even this hatred, this rage inside of me, lust, all the 7 deadly sins or the poisons of the mind, as I prefer to call them. I was aware of all of them. And I started to identify myself with them. And so I started to loathe myself. Until I continued reading on, and it actually described it beautifully in the book that I was reading, was that after a while you start to experience all this stuff, and what it was described as the false that's surfacing. And you have to see it to free it, right? You've got to see all the shit in there, and you'd be blessed if you've got no shit in there, but if you're like me and the rest of us, you probably do. And so you have to expose it, you have to see it, you have to become aware of it. It's self-observation. But you don't want to build an identity around that, right? Maybe you could call it the false that's appearing. You're observing the false. I question, if I'm aware of something, who am I? Am I the awareness or am I the object of awareness? Something to consider. We'll get into that. But so with self-observation, or following self-observation, needs to come self-acceptance. When I say needs to, well, if you don't accept it, then you're disputing the facts. You're denying what is, right? If there is something to observe, it is there. You're aware of it, so be it. It is what it is, right? We don't have to label it as good or bad. Even Shakespeare said that, right? Things are neither good or bad, it's thinking that makes it so. We don't have to define whatever we become aware of, observe about ourselves as good or bad. We just need to be aware of it, and then we have to accept it. Just accept it as it is. It just is what it is. We have to accept it. Again, I struggled with this point for some time until I realized, okay, not acceptance is creating a lot of pain and discomfort. So rather, I found accepting things just makes life easier. So that's the second step. The third step is self-understanding, right? So now is the point where we actually do this work. The work that you're doing in this online course is to understand, okay, well, why is my mind like that? For me, I've come to understand that certain things happen in my life. As a young kid, I chose to believe that I'm not good enough for a number of reasons. I'm not good enough, I'm bad, I'm not good enough, I'm stupid, I'm not good enough, I'm wrong, I'm not good enough, I'm defective, I'm not good enough, I'm undeserving, I'm not good enough, I'm not enough. All of these beliefs that as a young kid I didn't know better and I chose to believe them, right? I didn't know that maybe just my parents having a bad hair day, right? Rather I blamed it on me. It was me, my fault. It's because of me, I'm not good enough. And so I've had to come to understand that. And you too, doing this process, will understand why you are the way you are, why you feel the way you feel, why you behave the way you behave. So self-understanding is absolutely essential. I've always said self-knowledge, knowing yourself, is supreme knowledge. Because what's more important than knowing your own self? You could know everything about anything, which is unlikely, but if you don't know who you are, what's the point? Right? So you've got to understand yourself. You've got to understand how your mind operates. Right? Now the next step is self-discipline. So this is where we now start to, choose to nip in the bud some of the extraneous thoughts or beliefs that we have. We can cut them. For me, I'll give you the example. I had some workers did a dodgy repair job on the road on my property, and I walked out one morning and I was feeling really good and feeling peaceful and happy and balanced, and I walked up to that road and I took one look at it and I put my head down and walked away from the road, and all of a sudden I felt shit. And then it dawned on me, like, hello, of course I feel shit because I'm focusing on shit. I'm focusing on what went wrong. I'm focusing on the negative. And so I used discipline to go, I nipped that thought in the bud. I straight away redirected my mind to something more uplifting and positive. And lo and behold, I started to feel good. Right? We have to know this, and something I'm going to emphasize a lot. If you're feeling crappy, it's because you're having crappy thoughts. It's simple as that. Right? So we need to discipline ourselves to make sure we take the action that we know is best. Right? That's self-discipline. Then we move into self-actualization. Right? When you really apply these lessons and when you really discipline yourself to do what is right for yourself, when you actually do the practices that are good for you, when you start looking after yourself, including sleep, hydration, nutrition, exercise, right? And affirmation, incantation, prayer, or whatever else it may be that helps to channel your mind towards positive, uplifting thoughts, right? Once you start to consistently do that through self-discipline, you're going to self-actualize. Right? In other words, you're going to be the best version of yourself. You're going to manifest your goals and dreams. And I've no doubt that you are capable of doing that if you apply your understanding in and around these 7 steps. Right? So come after self-actualization, then comes self-transformation. Right? All of a sudden become a new person. I know for me, like I'm ex-army, and when I was in the army, I was a whole different person to the person I am today. I was A-type, full of desire, full of anger, full of rage, blaming the outside for how I felt, trying to get everyone else to change so I could feel better, right? And over the past 20 years, I've had some catalytic shifts, and I feel like I've certainly reached that point of transformation. I thought personally, the greatest miracle I've witnessed in my own life is the transformation of my heart, where now I'm far more in touch with being loving and connected. And so now the final one, I can't really speak from experience, self-transcendence. That's where we actually transcend all notions of self, which for me, I just recognize that as being the concept of awakening or enlightenment. Fully awake, fully aware, no longer caught up in the delusional notions of self. And you have to recognize this, that your mind is a storyteller, right? Constantly notionifying, conceptualizing, judging everyone. But think about it, even if there's a little bit of relative truth to your judgment, to your thoughts, to your beliefs, it's not absolute truth, right? So it's just not true. So why not let it go? And then if we do, maybe, certainly I'm aspiring for it, to transcend the self. The Buddhists have a proverb that says, no self, no problem. And certainly that's what I'm aspiring for. I know that myself, this idea of me pops into my life too often. Me, this misidentification or this label that I've given myself. And so I encourage you to work towards self-transcendence. Work towards no I. Work towards being free, In fact, the great sage Ramana Maharishi, he said, the only thing stopping you from the experience of freedom is the thought that you're not free, right? And when we get caught up in these limiting notions of self, me, my, I, of course we feel like we're trapped in this body and that we're limited. Anyway, we'll get more to that later, but they are the 7 psycho-spiritual laws of maturation. Self-observation leads to self-acceptance, leads to self-understanding, leads to self-discipline, leads to self-actualization, leads to self-transformation, leads to self-transcendence. Hallelujah. See you in the next module.